I was having y'all boy Rico from RicoScores. I wasn't able to get a video out last night, but we have a really fun video that we're doing today. We're going to talk about all of the Washington Commanders' new general manager, Adam Peters' most important offseason dates. We're going to do a study of Adam Peters' offseason tendencies. Like, does Adam Peters love the talent from the Senior Bowl? Does he do blockbuster trades? Is he willing to do blockbuster trades? Of course, he's a late round draft genius. We're going to dive into that when we talk about the draft part of this schedule, the offseason schedule. Like, what points in the offseason does Adam Peters and this new Washington Commanders front office and potential coaching staff, starting with potentially a Ben Johnson, just absolutely have to kill it? We're going to do a full breakdown on Adam Peters and his entire checklist as his first year of the Washington Commanders general manager in this upcoming 2024 offseason. Well, it's already started for us, but there are some teams that are still competing for a Super Bowl, so it hasn't started for everybody officially yet. But we're going to dive into every important offseason date and, again, explain why Adam Peters has to kill certain ones. We're going to take a look at his previous history and his tendencies as far as free agency, trades, and all of that stuff goes based on what he's done with the 49ers, and project to see if that's what he may do coming here as well. And we got to talk about everything. Like, we're even going to talk about Jamin Davis's 5th-year option. Do we think Adam Peters will pick that up for any crazy reason? All of that. But before we dive into anything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Stay tuned for all of the content. Super excited. So many video ideas. I just keep ending up really busy, and I have a lot of family stuff going on today, so I'm gonna try my best to try to squeeze in a second video, but I had to make sure I at least did this one. If maybe there's some breaking news that maybe I can set aside a little bit of time to discuss that real quick, but I have so many video ideas I'm working on, so my next few ideas are lined up. But of course, breaking news topics and rumors and reports come out that push everything back further down the line, so stay tuned. So much content. Let's go ahead and get to this video right here. Let's get it. All right, so of course, outside of like actually going and hiring a head coach, you know, but that's not like a typical every NFL team has to do this every offseason thing. We're only looking at dates that are confirmed. Like, we know exactly this day, this year, we have to do this. And that's what every NFL team has to do, type of things. So, of course, we're still looking for our head coach technically, even though it looks like it's very likely to be Ben Johnson. And after that, we got to figure out defensive coordinator, because like I've already done a video reporting on it. If we hire Ben Johnson as our head coach, it's widely reported and assumed that he would bring his offensive lines coach over as the offensive coordinator, which I'm super down for. But for dates that everybody in the NFL, all 32 teams, have to deal with, something important relating to every team, not just something specific to the Commanders only. Starting with February 1st, we have the East-West Shrine Bowl at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Of course, you can find a lot of very underrated talent there, but the Commanders, as we're currently constructed, who knows, maybe Adam Peters flips this whole thing upside down before we even get to February 1st, but he said in his press conference that he feels like we don't even necessarily need to do a complete rebuild, and specifically talking about like the coaching staff and the front office and things like that. He said, like, as far as the scouts goes and people that evaluate talent, he said that he feels like a lot of those guys just weren't being heard with the previous regime, and he's going to give those guys a chance to be heard and things like that. So DB's coach Jim Salgado and DB's coach Christian Garcia and offensive assistant Tyree Reed may have a chance to actually be here by the time the East-West Shrine Bowl happens, which is very soon, within 6 days, again scheduled to start on February 3rd. And we're sending those 3 assistant coaches that I just named to said Shrine Bowl. Again, DB's coach Jim Salgado will be the defensive backs for the East team. Defensive backs coach Christian Garcia will be the defensive backs for the West team, and defensive assistant Tyree Reed will be the quarterbacks coach for the West team. So we have boots on the ground at this East-West Shrine Bowl. So if we're interested in any of the players, we have inside knowledge to a lot of those guys that are going to see a lot of those underrated prospects practice tendencies and how much they working, or maybe we could get the inside track on maybe just a really underrated talent that wasn't really noticed and given his fair props or evaluation at the college level, but maybe they go to the East-West Shrine Bowl and show out, and then we develop those relationships with that guy. And then a lot of those guys go undrafted, so this will be sort of like a look into who we may bring in as potential undrafted free agents. But then again, somebody, or maybe even a couple of people, may show out at this East-West Shrine Bowl and raise their stock to the point that they end up getting drafted. And don't be surprised if Adam Peters and company end up taking at least one person from this East-West Shrine Bowl. It's not very likely, but you never know, especially with us sending 3 coaches to be there. It increases our chances of taking one of those guys for sure. Now, moving on to February 3rd, we have the Senior Bowl at Hancock Whitney Stadium in Mobile, Alabama. And in recent history, the Burgundy and Gold have loved taking players from the Senior Bowl. But does Adam Peters? And the answer is yes, because the 49ers and their lead talent evaluator and Adam Peters just within the past few years drafted Senior Bowl standouts like Deebo Samuel, Dre Greenlaw, Brandon Ayuk, Javon Kinlaw, Jalen Hurd, among many others. So Adam Peters does like to take players from the Senior Bowl if they look like they're worth it. And so pay very close attention to the Senior Bowl. You already know I will be, because first of all, I just love football, but also there will be a good amount of great Georgia dogs there. Like guys I feel like don't even need to actually really participate in the Senior Bowl. They deserve, with their talent alone, to be drafted pretty high in the draft. But of course, go to the Senior Bowl and show people that you are being drastically underrated right now. But that's just my personal attachment from the college football level from the Georgia side. But on top of all of that, Adam Peters shows he has a slight propensity to take standouts from the Senior Bowl. So if you want to have any clue as to who the Commanders may potentially draft in April, especially if you're into doing mock drafts like I am, pay really close attention to the standouts at the Senior Bowl coming up. And again, that's going down February 3rd, so that's not very far from now. And then February 19th, we have the HBCU Combine in Oceaner Sports Performance Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. What better place to have an HBCU Combine, man? I mean, there's a very few select few places that would make more sense for an HBCU Combine. I love it. I hope we give those guys an honest shot. I hope we send at least a couple of guys there to really watch that and get him. It may be considered drafting one of those guys, because we know we go years in the draft sometimes without a single HBCU player taken. So I hope we take that seriously. Hope we send some people there. Also, February 20th is the beginning date through March 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern time, where clubs may designate franchise or transition tags. Is there anybody we may potentially tag? Again, when we're looking at unrestricted free agents for the Commanders, you have wide receiver Curtis Samuel, starter. Cornerback Kendall Fuller, starter. Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback backup, but when he came in, he looked like the starter at times. Then linebacker Cody Barton, starter. Cornelius Lucas, the left tackle. A lot of people argue he should have been starting, and I would definitely want to bring him back at the very least for cheap, but he's not a franchise tag type of guy. Jeremy Reeves, strong safety, but all pro special teamser, so technically starter on special teams. F.A. Obata, David Bada, all kinds of edge rusher depth and starters, including James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill, all unrestricted free agents as well. I've done full video breakdowns on all of these unrestricted free agents, but I'm just trying to prove the point that we have a lot of guys that we may want to potentially bring back. We'll see how much Adam Peters wants to purge this roster, if he wants to just let these guys walk or whatever. But you also have starter linebacker Khaleke Hudson, and technically at times, due to injury, starter linebacker David Mayo available. Neither of those guys are franchise tag options, but you see what I'm saying. You have Antonio Gibson. You're starting center after Nick Gates failed, Tyler Larson. You have Jamison Crowder, your punt returner, your starting punt returner. You have Joey Sly, your starting kicker. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Cameron Curl. I would say out of the franchise tag options, the guys that we're most likely to franchise tag will probably be Cameron Curl, Kendall Fuller, or Curtis Samuel, with Antonio Gibson probably like a distant fourth. So if we were to franchise tag anybody, it would be one of those 4 guys. But I doubt we franchise tag anybody, because that situation gets so complicated. It rarely works out for the team that franchise tags that player. They end up going elsewhere usually and things like that. And I don't think Adam Peters wants to start his career as the Washington Commanders general manager. Technically his first time being a general manager ever in his life, with franchise tagging an ex Commanders player from a previous regime, the Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew regime and stuff like that. Moving on, February 24th, we have the HBCU Legacy Bowl at Yeoman Stadium at Tulane University. I hope we take that pretty seriously as well and send some people out there for that. And then February 27th is the start of the NFL Scouting Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium, Indianapolis, Indiana. And there's been talks about them potentially moving it elsewhere, but I know at least through the 2024 and I believe the 2025 off season, it will stay there. But there's question as to where it may move somewhere else as of the year 2026. But we'll see. That's just something completely different. That's just me going on a different tangent that doesn't have much to do with this video. Just something that popped up in my head. I remember reading it somewhere. Just wanted to throw that out there for those of y'all who may not know that may care. And so that combine goes from February 27th all the way through March 4th. And these are when basically college pro days begin as well. So that's when we'll start traveling to maybe like USC to look at Caleb Williams, UNC to look at Drake May, LSU to look at Jaden Daniels. And not even just quarterbacks, all type of positions. Maybe I hope they go to Georgia's pro day because we have so much elite talent at tight end and tackle and DBs and things like that. It's just, you would be remiss to not go to Georgia's pro day, any of the top programs. Even though Alabama is losing a lot of players, even if looking at the very least their DBs go to their pro day or anything like that, there may be some receivers or something like that. Just go to all of these different, at the very least, top schools pro days. Go to Ohio State. Go look at my boy Cade Stover real quick, the tight end that I hope we take later in the draft, because that could be potentially Ben Johnson, if we hire him as our head coach, his next Sam Laporta type of situation. So February 27th is when everything really kicks off. We have the combine, we have pro days. It gets crazy, man. And so workouts of a school's pro day eligible players with players outside of the scheduled pro day activities are prohibited. Private dinners, meetings, and interviews are permitted as well. So this is when we start to interview players. We start to fly them out to the DMV and have dinner with them or have them work out in front of us. We'll have meetings. We're going to do the all 22 stuff, asking them job interview questions and stuff like that. This is when the talent evaluation really kicks off. So I'm super excited about those days. And I could talk about that for 30 minutes or more itself, but we're going to keep it pushing, man, because y'all know I love me some team building. You know, if I had to pick one job at the NFL, it would be like a general manager, front office job. Coaching sounds fun, and even being a player sounds fun, but for me, my biggest passion is team building, free agency, and draft and stuff like that. So that's why I'm just super excited about late February, early March, man. That's probably one of my most favorite moments in the year, man. That time period is so fun for me, man. And then March 11th through the 13th, during the period beginning at 12 noon New York time on March 11th and ending at 3:59 p.m., like they got it all the way down to the seconds New York time. On March 13th, clubs are permitted to contact and enter into contract negotiations with the certified agents of players who will become unrestricted free agents upon the expiration of their 2023 player contracts at 4 p.m. New York time on March 13th. So before we even dive into this whole new league year thing, I just want to point out the fact that one of the biggest compliments and glowing remarks and biggest positive reviews of Adam Peters that you were seeing amongst NFL agents, top executives, and elite NFL minds around the NFL, guys with connections and things like that, is that Adam Peters, honestly, out of all front office members, whether you're an assistant general manager, an official general manager like Adam Peters just became, a president of football operations, whoever, a lot of people talk about Adam Peters being the most likable, trustworthy guy there. So when you're talking about us being a potential free agency destination, a guy that's plugged in with a lot of agents and a lot of agents like and are going to be willing to do business with and talk to and contract negotiations and things like that, we have arguably the top guy at that, at the very least one of the top guys. Not only is Adam Peters one of the top talent evaluators in the draft and free agency and all of those things like that, found in late round gyms, all pros, pro bowlers in the late rounds like it's nothing. You can argue he's the best at that at the NFL. You can also argue he's the best at having healthy relationships with players, agents, and things like that. That's going to pay dividends in the long run for us. And I think you're going to see it immediately as of this offseason. I think you're going to see the fruits of that labor, man. I'm super excited about that. And then on top of all of that, even just outside of Adam Peters, Bob Myers is an ex-agent, and he has healthy relationships between NBA, NFL, everywhere. Rick Spielman, that's why we brought him in as well. He brings in another load of healthy relationships with agents all over the place in the NFL and things like that. So when you're talking about becoming a free agency destination, we've catapulted from like one of the worst teams in the NFL to one of the best. So I'm super excited about that. Also, during the above 2-day negotiation period, a prospective unrestricted free agent who is not represented by an NFLPA certified contract advisor is permitted to communicate directly with the new club's front office officials, excluding the head coach and other members of the club's coaching staff, regarding contract negotiations. Also, no prospective unrestricted free agent is permitted to execute a contract with the new club until 4 p.m. New York time on March 13th, which takes us to March 13th, when everything starts to get really crazy. Well, technically everything really starts March 11th once we have that permitted to contact period, all of that type of stuff. That 2-day negotiation period is when we really get the most rapid fire notifications about who's agreed in principle to sign where. That team got that guy for this much money, all of that. That really starts to kick off March 11th, but March 13th is when we officially make things happen. Pen to paper, this guy signed with this team for this amount of money over the course of this many years with these incentives, all of those type of details and things like that. When things are officially official, that happens March 13th. The 2024 league year and free agency period begin at 4 p.m. New York time. The first day of the 2024 league year will end at 11:59 p.m. because again, they include the seconds as well. They're not playing. Everybody's on the edge of their seats waiting for that to happen. New York time on March 13th. Clubs will receive a personnel notice that will include all transactions submitted to the league office during the period between 4 p.m. New York time and 11:59 p.m. New York time on March 13th. Trading period for 2024 begins 4 p.m. New York time after expiration of all 2023 contracts, which takes us to a really fun part of this video. Because not only is March 13th the first day that teams can sign free agents from other teams, but like I just mentioned, this is also the first day that teams can legally make trades. And Adam Peters and his 49ers have shown that they are willing to make big blockbuster trades if it helps take them over the edge. If it's the last missing pieces to building an immediate Super Bowl contender, he's willing to do it. So trades wise, remember the San Francisco 49ers got Trent Williams from us in exchange for a 2020 5th round pick and a 2021 3rd round pick. I mean, basically pennies on the dollar for a future Hall of Famer, man. And then they also went and got Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers for a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick in 2023 and a 4th round pick in 2024. Again, pennies on the dollar. You can easily argue for how great those players are. And also to throw this in there, getting a talent like Chase Young, who went number 2 overall a few years ago, just for a compensatory 3rd round pick that will end up being the 100th pick in the draft, is pretty good as well. Like, I know Chase Young looked bad since they traded for him. He's looked bad in the playoffs and things like that. But I love the idea and the gamble of using a 100th overall pick to get a 2nd overall pick player. I like taking those risks on naturally talented players with theoretically high ceilings any day. Give me that. Sign me up for those type of trades any day. If there's an extremely talented, high top 1st round player drafted by another team and he's underperforming, whether it be the injuries or whatever, if we have an ugly late 3rd round pick, compensatory pick, I mean, especially one of those, which is technically a free pick that they were awarded by the NFL for losing a free agent from the previous year, then I'm signing up for that any day. I'll take that risk any day because you never know. And honestly, I mean, with Adam Peters here, who could have been one of the main reasons that the 49ers traded for Chase Young, now that Chase Young is free agent, do we sign Chase Young back here since Adam Peters is here? I highly doubt it, but it's a funny idea, man. Highly doubt it, though. I'd be willing to bet money that we don't, but it's just an interesting thought. So now, granted, these are pretty unique situations, but at the same time, I love how they smelled blood in the water and caught teams in desperate situations and were able to finesse trading for future Hall of Fame talent twice because the teams that those guys were currently on at the time, for one reason or another, were in very weird and pretty rare circumstances where they were willing to trade them away. Because in Trent Williams' situation, he was just sick of Bruce Allen, Dan Snyder, and was ready to go no matter what, especially after the healthcare situation and that scare with him feeling like his life was at risk. And for the Panthers, they were in an ugly situation, which happens quite often, where they're in a situation they knew that they were rebuilding, and they had this potentially expensive star player on their roster, which was just kind of like, we're holding him back and we're going to pay him all of this money just for us to not be very good anyway. So if they were even just halfway decent, they probably would have done whatever it took to pay him and keep him long term and all of that type of stuff. Injuries or not. But like, honestly, if the Redskins at that time and the Panthers were contenders before making those trades probably don't ever happen. So on one side, some people would probably say that the 49ers are lucky, but I look at it as they did a fantastic job of getting a feel where other teams were in their rebuilds and what elite talent they could get on sale, because they got elite talent on sale, pennies on the dollar, you can argue, because they were really good at not only scouting players but scouting NFL team situations and being like, you're in a rebuild, I know you have this great player, we could take him off your hands and give you extra picks to potentially do a better version of that rebuild. Give us this elite talent for cheaper than you normally would, so that you can free yourselves of worrying about what you're going to do with this star player and maintain it. He's probably going to want to leave in free agency anyway, because he's tired of being on a team that's rebuilding and things like that. And I love the fact that Adam Peters has shown that he can smell that blood in the water and take full advantage of that. Get elite talent at a cheaper price than you normally should be able to. But don't get too excited though. Let's just go ahead and say this now as well, because these trades were made to complete a Super Bowl contending roster. We don't have a Super Bowl contender roster yet. We're actually in the beginning of a rebuild. Hopefully it's quicker than normal. Hopefully it's like the Texans going from a second overall pick to winning the division and winning a playoff game, but you never know. So they may not be very aggressive this offseason specifically, but you can certainly look forward to them being aggressive and strategic when we do finally have a great roster that's ready to contend. Adam Peters has shown that. When we are ready, Adam Peters is lock and loaded. Like, he's ready to go. And you never know. He may kick things off in his first year as GM and hit the ground running, but only time will tell. But I just want to go ahead and I got you excited with saying that Adam Peters has shown the history to do whatever it takes to get elite talent and to add to his team to make a Super Bowl contender even better than they already naturally were through the draft. But I also want to lower your expectations a little bit, just simmer down a little bit, especially as of this offseason, because we don't necessarily have the roster that's compatible with bringing over elite talent immediately right now, especially via trades. And then what about free agency? What about big signings there? Does history show that Adam Peters is willing to sign big-time free agents? Are we likely to go and get a Josh Allen from the Jaguars, the edge rusher there, the edge rusher Brian Burns from the Panthers, or linebacker Patrick Queen from the Ravens? They're all unrestricted free agents. Are we looking like we may potentially do a big splash of free agency like that? Well, that answer is a little weird. It's kind of like a yes and a no, because if you look at the current 49ers roster, and I've just looked it up and down, I spent like hours doing this, the majority of their highest paid players were directly drafted by the 49ers. 7 of their 11 top paid players and biggest cap hits are guys that the 49ers drafted themselves. And 2 of the 4 that weren't were guys that were traded for, just like we said in Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey. So that just leaves 2 of their top 11 top paid players being free agents signed from other teams. So Adam Peters was not lying in his press conference a couple of weeks ago when he said that he prioritizes building a Super Bowl contender through the draft. But when he feels it's necessary, he and the 49ers have been willing to sign a top free agency guy that can fill an immediate team need and help them become even stronger contenders at the time. Again, does he look at this current roster like that and be willing to do that? Or even if he does not view this current roster as a potential Super Bowl contender, which nobody would be willing to at all. No smart person is looking at this current roster like, yeah, we can win the Super Bowl in 2024. But even since we aren't, is he willing to still make those trades regardless? So you got to look at the fact that the 49ers went and got a Javon Hargrave and signed him to a 4-year, $84 million deal, which made him the 6th highest paid interior defensive lineman in the NFL to this day. And then they also went and got a Charvarius Ward, who, even though he wasn't getting paid a lot of money from the Chiefs at the time, he was still in his rookie contract. He was a really good player for the Chiefs. And I feel like a lot of people were pretty shocked that he didn't stay with the Chiefs, and the 49ers were able to pluck him away from the Chiefs and make him he was already really good for the Chiefs, but then he became elite with the 49ers. So that was arguably a top free agency signing as well. So again, 2 of their top 11 players on their cap sheet right now, on their cap space as far as cap hits and annual salary and all of that type of stuff. Not just talking about talent, but the top paid guys. 2 of them were free agency signings. So they've shown that they're willing to go get a guy. But if anything, that's a great sign that the best players on their team were drafted directly by them. If anything, that's a bigger compliment to them, to where they don't even feel the need to go spend top money in free agency or make ridiculous trades, because they build such a great Super Bowl contender directly through the draft that anything they do through via trade or free agency signings from other teams is just basically the icing on the cake. The last missing piece. Man, we just need an elite tackle. Man, we just need a true playmaking running back. Man, we need a lockdown corner. And man, I would love to get an additional defensive lineman that can dominate in the middle. But they drafted everything else. Every other need that a team has to build a Super Bowl contender, the 49ers drafted those guys. But to answer your question about trade and free agency, yeah, they're willing to do it, man. If that's what it takes, they will do it. So basically, look forward to no longer going bargain bin shopping. I mean, of course, every NFL team is going to sign some random who is that free agents to cheap deals that are probably going to contribute a little bit and maybe even start. But first of all, if anybody is willing to do that, if it's Adam Peters, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he found some truly impactful guys for cheap that everybody else slept on, and we're getting a steal in free agency because of the way that he steals in the draft with late round draft picks. We're going to talk about that soon when we get to the draft part of this offseason. And then also, again, every team does it. You're going to sign a couple of guys in free agency that aren't just Josh Allen, Brian Burns, Patrick Queen, or anybody like that. There's going to be a couple of guys like that's just how it goes. But I have faith that when they do identify a guy that they really feel like they need and that fits what we're trying to build, they are willing to go get that guy. Unlike Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew, that no matter how well somebody fit, no matter how elite of a talent that guy was and how much we had a need at that position in free agency, we weren't willing to go get him. Adam Peters is. He's shown that he will, but at the same time, is this team ready for that just yet? Since we're not Super Bowl contenders as of this season coming up. Now moving on, March 24th through the 27th, the annual league meeting in Orlando, Florida will go down, and I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see what comes from Adam Peters going to his first annual league meeting on behalf of the Commanders as our general manager and all of that. I think that's going to be pretty interesting as well. We may not get like a lot of breaking news from it, but I'm very curious to see what information and reports come out of that situation. Also, April 1st, clubs that hired a new head coach after the end of the 2023 regular season may begin off-season workout programs. That's us. That's us. We still don't know for certain who our next head coach will be. Looking very likely to be like a Ben Johnson. But one thing for sure and 2 things for certain. It won't be Ron Rivera. So we get to start our offseason workout programs 2 weeks earlier than most other NFL teams. And it's crazy that Rivera never got his extra 2 weeks because he came in during the height and the full-blown panic of COVID. But hey, man, now the Burgundy and Gold finally get their extra 2 weeks, unless I just jinxed it, unless something crazy happens, but some unforeseen events. But it looks like we're due for our 2 extra weeks of offseason programs, again, beginning April 1st, and that will not be an April Fool's joke. Then April 15th, all other NFL teams that are returning with the head coaches they had since last year, the previous season, can begin their offseason workout programs, which is, again, 2 weeks after all of us who are just now getting our head coaches for the first time this season. Then April 17th is the deadline for clubs to time test, visit, interview, and conduct a physical examination with draft-eligible players at its club facility. I'm so excited about that, man. We about to start seeing them visits come in. We got to track the visits, follow the visits, just like college football with high school recruiting. Follow the visits. Same thing with the draft, because even though Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew Well, Ron Rivera's gone. Martin Mayhew, even if he is still here for any reason, won't have any serious impact on what we do. But those guys, even we ended up selecting players that we brought in for visits, and that makes sense. This is a guy that you get to see work out in front of you. You test them, you do their physicals, you get to talk to them face to face in person, show them around your facilities and things like that. Basically get like a vibe check on the guys. And so I'm not surprised that teams have a propensity to draft players that they bring in for visits. So follow the visits. So as of April 17th, start to follow those visits. Who are the Commanders bringing in? Adam Peters and our next head coach and that whole coaching staff and front office. Who are we bringing into the DMV area? More than likely Virginia most times than not. Or maybe for some reason Josh Harris's Miami mansion, highly doubt it. But who are we bringing in to look at in person? Because you're limited on how many visits you can bring in. You just can't bring in every draft eligible player. You're limited. So that's another reason why it's kind of like, okay, follow the visits, because they have a limited amount that they can bring in. And if they prioritize certain guys, it's quite likely that we're strongly considering those guys in the draft. Also, April 19th, the deadline for restricted free agents to sign their offer sheets, and April 24th, the deadline for prior clubs to exercise right of first refusals to restricted free agents. So when we're talking about restricted free agents, for us, we're talking about David Bada, the defensive tackle, tight end Brandon Dillon, defensive tackle Curtis Brooks, long snapper Tucker Addington, and I mean, we're in need of a long snapper, so that's still like a need that we need to consider, and we need to figure out what we're going to do there. Then you have tackle Alex Akingbulu, and then lastly, my boy, linebacker Jabril Cox, that never got his fair chance to show what he could do this past season. What was the point of going to get him from the Cowboys practice squad if you weren't going to give him much playing time at all? I just still don't see it. Our season was lost a long time ago. Why didn't we even just give him the opportunity to start? And I'm not guaranteeing that Jabril Cox will be a great player, but what did it hurt in seeing what we can do, what we had in him? So hopefully he gets that fair shot with Adam Peters and company. Hopefully we retain him, because again, he's a restricted free agent, so that works differently than an unrestricted free agent. And I think it's highly likely that we do bring him back for extremely cheap, but I'm just hoping that we give him a fair opportunity to show what he can do, to prove himself, at the very least as an outside linebacker, especially with, I mean, I don't see Jabril Cox coming in and being that true Mike linebacker that we've been looking for basically since London Fletcher's been gone, but I think he can be a pretty good outside linebacker for you, like a will linebacker, especially with Jamin Davis both hurt and dealing with 3 separate legal cases right now, to where I'm not even sure if he's going to be able to play, even if he is healthy, because he may be suspended or dealing with some legal issues and having to go to court and all kinds of stuff like that, or even worse. So who knows? Also, moving on, April 24th is also the time, the deadline for clubs to time, test, meet, visit, including video and phone calls, or conduct a physical examination of draft eligible players at any location. So we can start April 17th and we got to stop April 24th. So be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, the time we've all been waiting for, April 25th through the 27th, the NFL draft in Detroit, Michigan, man. And maybe us going to Detroit is not only a chance for us to interview Ben Johnson for our head coaching job and go ahead and seal that deal, but maybe we're trying to scope out the place, like, okay, this is where we'll probably sit as far as the draft, you know what I'm saying? This is, we call dibs on this seat right here, this draft room right here. This is where we're gonna be at type. I don't know, you just never know. I'm just playing around. But either way, April 25th is when the draft starts, and you know I couldn't wait to talk about Adam Peters and his genius when it comes to finding late round talent. You have tackle George Kittle in the 2017 draft, round 5. Linebacker Fred Warner, 2018 draft, round 3. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver from the 2019 draft, round 2. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw, 2019 draft, round 5. Cornerback Demondre Lenore, 2021 draft, round 5. Safety Talanoa Hufanga, 2021 draft, round 5. Guard Spencer Burford, 2022 draft, round 4. And then, of course, quarterback Brock Purdy, 2022 draft, round 7. Everybody I just named was drafted round 2 or later. None of those all-pro, pro bowlers, strong contributors, good, really good to great starters were drafted in the first round. This is the guy we just hired as our GM. So get excited, folks, because I expect him to come here and do the same thing for the Commanders. Like I explained, he builds through the draft, and then we start to add a little bit more spices and sugar and stuff like that through free agency and the trade, but the draft is where he really makes his money. That's where he has the majority of the all-pros and pro bowlers on that 49ers roster right now. But also, don't forget that he also hits in the first round with picking Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead in the first rounds as well. So, of course, getting the all-pros and pro bowlers in rounds 2 through 7 is also great as well. And that's easily the most impressive. But Adam Peters and the 49ers have also made sure that to make their first round picks count as well. It's not like they're only finding all pro and Pro Bowl talent in the later rounds of the draft. They're hitting in every round. Doesn't matter, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh, they are hitting. He's not just a late round savant. He hits in the first round as well, and I'm super excited about that. No more wasted draft picks. No more second round curse. None of that, man. We're hitting on every round. Any single player that we take in the draft could be a strong contributor slash starter slash pro bowler slash all pro, just simply because Adam Peters is in the building, and I'm expecting whoever we bring in as a head coach to also contribute to that as well, man. I'm super excited. And then also May 2nd is the deadline for clubs to exercise the 5th-year option for players selected in the first round of the 2021 NFL draft, and you know who that is for us, Jamin Davis. And even though he hasn't lived up to his first round pick expectations at all, he has shown pretty big improvement. But with him currently on IR, so will he even be healthy and ready for the offseason workouts that we have? Again, we start 2 weeks before most NFL teams. And then on top of that, all of the legal trouble he's in for 3 different vehicle and speeding incidents. There's no way Adam Peters spends his first year as a general manager in his lifetime picking up Jamin Davis's 5th-year option, which would guarantee him $13.3 million against the cap in 2025. He's not doing that. We can go ahead and cross that off. Is definitely no. Impossibly no. Not even highly unlikely. No, it's just literally not gonna happen. And again, we have until May 2nd this offseason. No, we don't have until after this 2024 season to see if Jamin Davis can earn that. No, you got to decide by May 2nd this offseason. With Jamin Davis more than likely still currently on IR and going through legal troubles, you never know if he's going to be suspended by the NFL. You have until May 2nd, within a couple of months from now, to decide if you're going to pick up that 5th-year option. It's a definite no. I'd be willing to bet every penny I own on that. And then continuing in May 3rd through 6th, or May 10th through 13th, depending on who you are, clubs may elect to hold their 1 3-day post-draft rookie minicamp from Friday through Sunday or Saturday through Monday on one of the 2 weekends following the draft. That's going to be really fun because that's when that East-West Shrine Bowl talent I was talking to you about, maybe some Senior Bowl talent, maybe some HBCU talent, that's when we'll have our rookie minicamps to give those guys an opportunity to show what they can do and do the best that they can to try to make this roster. At the very least, make the 90-man roster, and then from there, do whatever they can with that opportunity to make the 53-man roster. So again, it all comes full circle when all of these things matter and connect. Then May 13th, we have the rookie football development programs, which is when like our rookies, draft picks, and even maybe some undrafted free agents have a chance to go to that whole program where everybody takes their pictures wearing their team jerseys and they get talked to by professionals about what to do with your money, the rules and regulations, and all that type of stuff. Not very important Adam Peters wise, but something I wanted to point out. And then May 22nd through the 24th, we have the spring league meeting. So another meeting for a lot of the top executives, head coaches, NFL owners, GMs, and stuff like that to all meet in one place and discuss various issues, usually talk about different rules that they may want in place, rule changes, stuff like that. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video, and I'm super excited. Hopefully, I explained that very well and very detailed for y'all. Hopefully, I did a great job of breaking that completely down. Adam Peters, his checklist for this offseason, as his first year of being the Washington Commanders GM. Again, he's tied down for the next 5 years, and I'm hoping he's our GM for the next 15, 20 plus years because I'm just that high on him. I just hope I did a great job explaining everything he needs to prioritize this season, and also breaking down his history of what he's done for those specific dates and activities and deadlines for the 49ers as well, and why you should be excited about Adam Peters basically running the show for us this offseason, especially for specific moments. But draft, free agency, trades, all of that type of stuff, East-West Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, all of that. So man, I really appreciate y'all. Stay tuned for more content. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything everything discussed in this video. I didn't expect this video to end up being recorded for 45 minutes. But hey, man, time flies when you're having fun. Make sure y'all stay tuned. Again, a lot more content on the way. I'm working on draft film sessions for a lot of the draft prospects that will be exclusive to channel members. I'm working on more live streams, especially call-in shows for you to voice your opinions on different topics like head coaches, and after we hire a head coach, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators, draft, free agency, all of that type of stuff. Jaden Daniels versus Drake May versus Caleb Williams. We could talk about a lot of stuff like that. And again, I want to use my platform to provide y'all an opportunity to voice your opinions on that type of stuff, because I feel like a lot of y'all are very smart out there. Y'all just didn't take the time to make a YouTube video to get your thoughts out there, so I like to provide y'all the platform to do that with my call-in shows. So stay tuned for those and a lot more content on the way. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.